The rain hammered against our kitchen window like accusations I'd been ignoring for months. Sienna stood by the granite counter, her perfectly manicured fingers wrapped around a coffee mug that had gone cold hours ago. She wore that expression I'd come to recognize, the one that meant she'd already made a decision and was just waiting for the right moment to deliver it. "I regret every day I spent with you," she said, completely flat. No emotion, no inflection, like she was reading a grocery list. I stared at her for a moment, taking in the designer workout clothes she'd never actually worked out in, the way her blonde hair fell in calculated waves, the cold distance in her blue eyes that used to make my heart race. Now they just made me tired. Without a word, I twisted my wedding ring off my finger. The gold band caught the kitchen light as I set it on the counter between us with a soft clink. The sound seemed to echo in the silence. "Well," I said, grabbing my keys from the hook by the door, "that makes two of us." I walked to my truck without looking back. The engine turned over on the second try, a small mercy in a day that had started badly and was clearly getting worse. As I backed out of our driveway, I caught a glimpse of Sienna through the window, still standing in the same spot, staring at the ring I'd left behind. 20 minutes later, I was sitting in my brother Danny's apartment, nursing a beer and staring at my phone. Danny had taken one look at my face and wordlessly handed me the bottle before disappearing into his bedroom to give me space. The apartment was a mess, typical for a guy who worked 60-hour weeks as a paramedic, but it felt more honest than the sterile perfection Sienna had insisted on at home. Empty pizza boxes, medical journals scattered across the coffee table, a couch that had seen better days but was actually comfortable. I opened Instagram and snapped a photo of my bare ring finger against the beer bottle. The caption came easily: "Back to bachelor life." I hit share before I could second-guess myself. The responses started almost immediately. Shocked face emojis from my cousin Jake. A fire emoji from my old college roommate. A few, "You okay, man?" messages that I wasn't ready to answer yet. 15 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a text from an unexpected number. "We need to talk. Not about what you think." Lyra Ventrix, Sienna's closest friend since college, the gorgeous brunette who always seemed to be around during Sienna's girls' nights and weekend trips. The one who'd smile at me with perfect white teeth while discussing whatever charity event or book club meeting they were planning next. I stared at the message for a full minute before typing back. "When and where?" "The Lantern Room. 1 hour. Come alone." The Lantern Room was downtown, the kind of upscale bar where Sienna and her crowd liked to see and be seen. Dark wood, exposed brick, craft cocktails that cost more than I used to spend on lunch for a week. Not exactly my scene, but neutral territory. I finished my beer and grabbed my jacket. Danny emerged from his bedroom as I was heading for the door. "Everything okay?" he asked, though we both knew it wasn't. "Getting there," I said. "I'll call you later." The drive downtown gave me time to think, which might have been a mistake. Sienna and I had been married for 4 years, together for 6. We'd met at a technology conference where I was working security and she was presenting some project management software to potential clients. She was smart, ambitious, beautiful, everything I thought I wanted. The problems had started small. Comments about my job, my friends, the way I dressed. Suggestions that became expectations that became demands. I'd told myself she was just trying to help me improve, but looking back, I could see the pattern. The slow erosion of everything that made me who I was. The Lantern Room was busy for a Tuesday night. I spotted Lyra immediately. She was sitting in a corner booth, already nursing what looked like a martini. She'd changed out of whatever she'd been wearing earlier into a black dress that probably cost more than my truck payment. She looked up as I approached, and I was surprised to see something that looked almost like relief in her dark eyes. "Reid," she said, gesturing to the seat across from her. "Thanks for coming." "Not sure I had a choice," I said, sliding into the booth. Your message sounded pretty urgent. A waitress appeared almost immediately. I ordered a whiskey, neat. Lyra waited until the woman was gone before leaning forward. How much do you know? She asked. About what? Don't play dumb. About Sienna. About what she's been doing. I studied her face, looking for tells. My background in private security had taught me to read people, but Lyra had always been hard to pin down. Tonight, though, there was something different about her. The usual polished confidence was cracked around the edges. Why don't you tell me what you think I should know? She reached into her purse and pulled out a manila envelope, thick with papers. 18 months, she said, sliding it across the table. Hotel receipts, restaurant bills, text messages, photos. Your wife has been having an affair with Derek Vaughn. Derek Vaughn. I knew the name. He was legal counsel at Sienna's firm, some hotshot from a wealthy family who drove a Tesla and wore suits that probably cost more than most people made in a month. I'd met him a few times at company parties, found him arrogant and entitled. Why are you telling me this? I asked, not touching the envelope yet. Because she promised me something she can't deliver, Lyra said, taking a long sip of her martini. And because you deserve to know the truth. I opened the envelope. The first thing I saw was a hotel receipt from the Fairmont Olympic, dated 3 months ago. The same weekend, Sienna had claimed to be at a conference in Portland. My name was nowhere on the registration. Underneath were printed screenshots of text messages, explicit conversations between Sienna and Derek, planning meetings, discussing how to keep their affair secret, references to when Reid's working late and after the divorce goes through. The photos were worse. Sienna and Derek at restaurants I recognized, at hotels I didn't, looking at each other the way she used to look at me. In some of them, she was wearing jewelry I'd never seen before, expensive pieces that were definitely not in our budget. How long have you known? I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. From the beginning, Lyra said. I was the one who helped them coordinate everything. Hotel reservations, alibi coordination, making sure you were working when they wanted to meet. I've been their logistics coordinator for over a year. The waitress brought my whiskey. I drank half of it in one swallow, feeling the burn all the way down. Why? I asked. Because Sienna promised me a cut when she divorced you, Lyra said, her voice bitter. She said Derek's family had connections, that they'd help me get a better job, maybe even help me buy a house. She made it sound like we were all going to win. And now? Now I found out she's been playing me the same way she's been playing you. Lyra reached into her purse again and pulled out her phone. She scrolled through messages and turned the screen toward me. It was a conversation between Sienna and Derek from 2 days ago. Sienna was complaining about Lyra, calling her clingy and desperate. Derek was suggesting they phase her out once the divorce was finalized. She never intended to help me, Lyra said. I was just useful until I wasn't. I finished my whiskey and signaled for another. The alcohol was helping, but not enough. The betrayal was deeper than just the affair. It was the systematic way they'd planned it, the way they'd used someone who trusted them, the way they'd been living their double life while I worked overtime to pay for the lifestyle Sienna insisted we maintain. There's more, Lyra said, pulling out another set of papers. Financial records. She's been moving money out of your joint accounts, small amounts over time so you wouldn't notice. And there's this. She handed me a bank document I'd never seen before, a home equity line of credit against our house, approved 3 months ago. The signature at the bottom looked like mine, but I'd never signed anything like this. She forged your signature, Lyra said. Derek helped her set it up through a contact at his bank. They've already withdrawn $40,000. I stared at the document, trying to process what I was seeing. $40,000. Our house, the one I'd been paying the mortgage on for 3 years, had been used as collateral for a loan I'd never authorized. What did she use the money for? Derek's gambling debts, mostly. He's got a problem with online poker that his family doesn't know about. Some of it went to jewelry, trips, the kind of things she couldn't explain to you. My phone buzzed. A text from Sienna. We need to talk when you get home. There are things we need to discuss. I showed the message to Lyra. She snorted. Let me guess. She's going to file for divorce and claim you were emotionally abusive. Make herself the victim. How could you possibly know that? Because that's exactly what she told me she was planning to do. Paint you as controlling and unstable, claim she was afraid of you. Derek's family has connections in the legal community. They were going to make sure she got everything. The second whiskey arrived. I needed it. Why are you really telling me this, Lyra? What do you want from me? She leaned back in the booth, studying my face. Honestly? I want to watch her world fall apart the same way she was planning to destroy yours. I want Derek to lose everything his family's money can't buy back. And I want you to have the chance to fight back before they bury you. I looked at the evidence spread across the table between us. Hotel receipts, forged documents, text messages, photos. A year and a half of systematic deception and theft. My wife and her lover had been planning my destruction while I worked 60-hour weeks to pay for their lifestyle. What do you suggest I do about it? Lyra smiled for the first time since I'd sat down. It wasn't a pleasant expression. I suggest we give them exactly what they deserve. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat at Danny's kitchen table with Lyra's evidence spread out like pieces of a puzzle I was finally starting to understand. Every hotel receipt, every text message, every forged document told a story I'd been too trusting, or too stupid, to see. The pattern was elegant in its simplicity. Sienna's book club met every Thursday night, always on the same nights I worked late surveillance jobs for the private security firm. Her weekend conferences coincided perfectly with my out-of-town assignments. Even her sudden interest in yoga classes had started right around the time Derek joined her company. I'd been so focused on building our future that I'd missed the signs of her tearing it down. Danny found me there at 6 a.m, surrounded by papers and empty coffee cups. Jesus, Reid, he said, taking in the scene. You look terrible. Feel worse, I admitted. But I'm starting to understand what I'm dealing with. I filled him in on everything Lyra had told me, watching his expression grow darker with each detail. Danny had never particularly liked Sienna. He'd always said she was too concerned with appearances, but even he looked shocked by the scope of the betrayal. So, what's your next move? He asked. First, I need to verify everything Lyra told me. She could be playing her own game. You think she's lying? I think she's telling me the truth, but not necessarily all of it. She wants something from me, and until I know what that is, I need to be careful. My phone rang. Sienna's name on the display. I let it go to voicemail, then played the message on speaker. Reid, I know you're upset, but we need to talk like adults. Come home so we can discuss this rationally. I'm willing to work something out that's fair for both of us. Danny raised an eyebrow. She sounds awfully reasonable for someone who just told you she regrets every day of your marriage. That's what worries me. I spent the morning at the office trying to focus on work while my personal life imploded. I ran background checks for insurance companies, verified employment for mortgage applications, tracked down deadbeat dads who owed child support. Normal, straightforward problems with clear solutions. Around lunch, my boss Terry called me into his office. Everything okay, Reid? He asked, closing the door behind me. You seem distracted today. Terry was a good guy, former police detective who'd started the agency after taking early retirement. He'd given me a chance when I was transitioning out of the military, taught me the private investigation business, treated me fairly. Personal stuff, I said. Nothing that'll affect my work. I got a call this morning, Terry said, settling behind his desk. Someone claiming to be concerned about your mental state. Said you'd been making threats, acting unstable. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. What kind of threats? The caller was vague. Just said they were worried about your wife's safety, thought I should know in case it affected your security clearance. Did they leave a name? No, but it was a woman. Professional sounding, well-spoken. Terry leaned forward. Reid, I've known you for 3 years. You're one of the most level-headed people I've ever worked with. But I had to ask. It's my wife's friend, I said. Or maybe my wife herself. They're trying to get ahead of something. I told Terry about the divorce, the affair, the forged documents. He listened without interrupting, his detective instincts kicking in. You need a lawyer, he said when I finished, and you need to document everything. If they're willing to forge bank documents and make false reports about your mental state, they're not going to stop there. I know. I'm working on it. Take the rest of the day off, Terry said. Get your house in order. And Reid, be careful. People who are desperate enough to forge documents are desperate enough to do worse. I drove home to find Sienna's car in the driveway. She was waiting in the living room, sitting on the white leather couch she'd insisted we buy, looking perfectly composed in a way that now seemed calculated rather than elegant. We need to talk, she said as I walked in. I'm listening. I know you're hurt, and I understand that, but we can handle this like civilized people. I've already spoken to a lawyer, and we can work out a settlement that's fair to both of us. Fair, I repeated. Interesting choice of words. I'm not trying to take advantage of you, Reid. I just want us both to be able to move on with our lives. I sat down across from her, studying her face. She was good, I had to give her that. The perfect balance of regret and determination, vulnerability and strength. If I hadn't seen Lyra's evidence, I might have actually believed her. What kind of settlement did you have in mind? I keep the house, you keep your retirement accounts and the truck. We split the savings 50-50, and neither of us pays alimony. What about the home equity loan? For just a moment, her composure cracked. A flicker of surprise, quickly covered. What home equity loan? I pulled out the forged documents and set them on the coffee table between us. This one, the one with my forged signature that you used to steal $40,000. She stared at the papers for a long moment, and I could almost see her mind working, calculating her options. I don't know what you're talking about, she said finally. I've never seen these documents before. Really? Because the bank has security footage of you making the withdrawals, and the handwriting analysis is going to be very interesting. That was a bluff. I hadn't contacted the bank yet, but her reaction told me everything I needed to know. She was guilty, and she knew I had proof. Even if that were true, she said, her voice taking on a harder edge, it wouldn't matter. We're married. What's mine is yours, and what's yours is mine. I had every right to access our equity. Not by forging my signature, you didn't. Prove it. I smiled. I plan to. She stood up, smoothing down her skirt. You're making a mistake, Reid. I'm trying to be reasonable here, but if you want to play hardball, I can do that too. Ask yourself if you really want everyone to know about your anger issues, your drinking, the way you've been controlling our finances. My anger issues? The neighbors have heard you yelling. Your co-workers have seen you drinking during lunch. And everyone knows how you've kept me on such a tight budget that I couldn't even buy clothes without asking permission. None of that was true, but I could see how it might sound plausible to someone who didn't know me. She'd been building a narrative, creating a foundation for her victim story. You're really going to claim I was abusive? I'm going to claim whatever I need to claim to protect myself. She picked up her purse and headed for the door. You have 24 hours to accept my offer. After that, things get complicated. After she left, I sat in the empty house and tried to process what had just happened. The woman I'd been married to for 4 years had just threatened to destroy my reputation and my career if I didn't quietly accept being robbed and discarded. My phone buzzed. A text from Lyra. How did it go? I called her instead of texting back. She just threatened to claim I was abusive if I don't accept her settlement offer. I said when she answered. I told you she would. She's been planning this for months. What else haven't you told me? There was a pause. Meet me tonight. Same place. There's something you need to see. What kind of something? The kind that changes everything. I looked around the house Sienna wanted to steal from me, at the furniture she'd bought with money she'd taken from our accounts, at the life we'd built together that had apparently been a lie from her perspective. I'll be there in an hour. Lyra was already waiting when I arrived at the lantern room, but this time she wasn't alone. A man in his 30s sat across from her, nervous energy radiating from every gesture. He had the soft look of someone who'd never done a day of manual labor, expensive clothes that didn't quite fit his personality. Reid, Lyra said as I approached, this is Tyler Boone, Derek's best friend. Tyler looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. He kept glancing toward the exit as if planning an escape route. Why is Derek's friend here? I asked, not sitting down yet. Because he has something to tell you, Lyra said. Something Derek doesn't know he's going to share. I studied Tyler's face. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the bar's air conditioning, and his hands shook slightly as he lifted his beer. What's this about? I asked, finally taking a seat. Tyler looked at Lyra, who nodded encouragingly. Derek's been bragging, Tyler said, his voice barely above a whisper, about how he's going to take everything from you. Your house, your savings, even your job. My job? He knows people. His family has connections everywhere, banks, law firms, government agencies. He said once Sienna files the abuse charges, he can make sure you never work in security again. I felt that cold feeling in my stomach again. What abuse charges? Tyler pulled out his phone and scrolled through messages. He's been documenting everything. Photos of Sienna with makeup that looks like bruises, recordings of her practicing how to sound scared when she talks to the police. He turned the phone toward me. The screen showed a photo of Sienna with what looked like a black eye and bruised cheek. The makeup was good, but I could see the edges where it didn't quite blend with her natural skin tone. When was this taken? Last week. Derek took dozens of photos from different angles. They've been practicing her story, making sure all the details line up. Why are you telling me this? Tyler finished his beer in one long gulp. Because Derek screwed me over on a business deal 6 months ago. Cost me $50,000 and nearly destroyed my relationship with my family. I've been waiting for a chance to get back at him. Lyra slid another envelope across the table. Financial records, she said. Derek's gambling debts, the money Sienna's been funneling to him, and something else you need to see. I opened the envelope. The first document was a credit report showing Derek owed over $200,000 to various casinos and online gambling sites. The second was a bank statement showing regular transfers from an account I recognized, our joint savings. The third document made me stop breathing for a moment. It was a birth certificate for Sienna's son from her first marriage, a son I'd been helping to raise for 4 years, paying for his school, his clothes, his medical bills. According to the document, the father wasn't Sienna's ex-husband like she'd always claimed. It was Derek Vaughn. How long have they known? I asked. From the beginning, Tyler said. Derek's been paying child support under the table for years. When Sienna married you, it gave them the perfect cover story. I stared at the birth certificate, trying to process what this meant. The boy I'd been treating as a stepson was actually Derek's biological child. Every school event I'd attended, every bedtime story I'd read, every time I'd helped with homework, I'd been raising Derek's son while he and Sienna planned to destroy my life. There's more, Lyra said softly. She handed me a printed email chain between Sienna and Derek, dated from 3 months ago. They were discussing their exit strategy, how to maximize what they could take from me while minimizing their legal exposure. Derek had researched my background, my financial situation, even my military service record. They knew exactly how much I was worth and had planned their theft accordingly. The home equity loan was just the beginning. They'd also opened credit cards in my name, taken out a personal loan using forged documents, and had been slowly draining our joint accounts for over a year. "How much?" I asked. "Total? About $120,000, Lyra said. Plus, they were planning to claim half of your retirement accounts and the full value of the house." I did the math in my head. They were planning to steal nearly everything I'd worked for over the past decade, plus saddle me with debt I'd never authorized, plus destroy my reputation and career prospects for good measure. "Why didn't you stop them sooner?" I asked Tyler. I didn't know how bad it was until recently. Derek only told me pieces of it, usually when he was drinking. I thought it was just an affair that got out of hand. And now? Now I know they're planning to frame you for domestic violence while they disappear with your money. Derek's already got a job lined up in California. They were going to leave right after the divorce was finalized. My phone buzzed. A text from Sienna. "Time's running out. Make your decision." I showed the message to Lyra and Tyler. "She's getting nervous," Lyra observed. "Probably wondering how much you actually know. What do you think I should do?" Lyra leaned forward, her eyes bright with something that might have been anticipation. "I think it's time to turn the tables. They've been playing a long game, but they made one crucial mistake." "Which is?" "They trusted the wrong people." She gestured to Tyler, who was looking increasingly uncomfortable but determined. "Tyler's going to help us gather evidence. Real evidence, not just documents that could be disputed in court. Video, audio recordings, proof of the forgeries and the fake abuse claims." "What kind of proof?" Tyler pulled out a small recording device. "Derek doesn't know I've been recording our conversations. I have hours of him bragging about how he's going to destroy you, how his family's connections will make sure you never recover. And I have access to Sienna's email accounts," Lyra added. "She trusted me with her passwords months ago, back when I was helping coordinate their meetings. She never changed them." I looked at both of them, these two people who had been part of the conspiracy to destroy my life and were now offering to help me fight back. The smart thing would be to take everything to a lawyer, let the legal system handle it. But the legal system was slow and expensive, and Derek's family connections might give them advantages I couldn't match. "What are you proposing?" "We give them exactly what they've been planning to give you," Lyra said. "Complete destruction, financial ruin, social humiliation, legal consequences. We use their own tactics against them. That's a dangerous game." "It's the only game they've left you," Tyler said. "Derek's not going to stop. Even if you could prove everything in court, his family would just bail him out and he'd try again. The only way to win is to make sure he can't." I thought about the forged documents, the fake abuse photos, the systematic theft of everything I'd worked for. I thought about the boy I'd been raising who wasn't my stepson, and the woman I'd loved who had apparently been planning my destruction from the beginning. "What do you need from me?" Lyra smiled that predatory smile again. "Just follow our lead, and be ready to act when the time comes." "When will that be?" "Soon," she said. "Sienna's filing the divorce papers tomorrow morning. The abuse charges will follow within 48 hours. After that, you'll be fighting from a defensive position." "So we move first." "We move tonight." Tyler stood up, still nervous but more determined than when I'd arrived. "Derek's having a poker game at his apartment tomorrow night. High stakes, illegal, with some very unsavory characters. If something were to go wrong during that game—" "What kind of wrong?" "The kind that gets everyone arrested," Lyra said, "including Derek, with enough evidence of his gambling problem and illegal activities to destroy his credibility permanently." I finished my drink and considered my options. I could walk away, try to fight this through legal channels, hope for the best. Or I could trust two people who had already betrayed others and hope they wouldn't betray me too. But as I looked at the evidence of Sienna and Derek's systematic destruction of my life, I realized I didn't really have a choice. "Tell me what you need me to do." The next morning, I watched from my truck as Sienna's lawyer filed the divorce papers at the courthouse. I'd been parked across the street since 7 a.m. drinking coffee and trying to calm my nerves. Tyler sat in the passenger seat, a small camera with a telephoto lens in his lap. "There," he said, snapping photos as a woman in an expensive suit walked up the courthouse steps. "That's Amanda Chen, Derek's cousin. She's representing Sienna. Family discount? More like family conspiracy. Amanda knows exactly what Derek and Sienna have been doing. She's part of it." I watched Amanda disappear into the building, carrying a briefcase that probably contained months of carefully crafted lies about our marriage. In a few hours, I'd officially be served with divorce papers that painted me as an abusive husband. "Phase 1 starts now," Tyler said, pulling out his phone. He dialed a number and waited. When someone answered, he put on a voice I didn't recognize. Higher-pitched, nervous. "Is this the IRS fraud hotline? I'd like to report suspected tax evasion and money laundering." For the next 10 minutes, Tyler provided detailed information about Derek's gambling debts, the cash payments he'd been receiving, and the suspicious financial transfers. He gave them Derek's name, social security number, and address. "They'll start investigating within 48 hours, Tyler said after hanging up. "Derek's been claiming his gambling winnings, but not his losses, and he's been hiding the money Sienna's been giving him. The IRS doesn't like either of those things." "What about the fake abuse charges?" "That's where Lyra comes in." As if summoned by her name, Lyra appeared at my driver's side window. She was dressed like a jogger, complete with running shoes and a fitness tracker, but I could see the determination in her eyes. "Sienna's at work," she reported. "Derek's in court all morning on another case. Their apartment is empty." "Their apartment?" "Derek's place. Sienna's been staying there 3 nights a week for the past month. Neighbors think she's his girlfriend." I thought about that. If Sienna was already living with Derek part-time, it would be hard for her to claim she was afraid of me. Domestic violence victims don't typically move in with their new boyfriends while still married to their alleged abusers. "Did you get what we need?" Lyra held up a small device that looked like a USB drive. "Security system bypass. I'll have 20 minutes to get in and out before the backup system kicks in." "What are you looking for?" "The fake abuse evidence. Derek's been keeping everything on his personal computer. The photos, the practice recordings, even a written script for Sienna to follow when she talks to the police." Tyler checked his watch. "Derek's hearing should last another hour. Sienna's in meetings until lunch. You have a clear window." I watched Lyra jog toward Derek's building, trying to ignore the voice in my head that said this was all moving too fast. But Sienna had given me 24 hours to accept her terms, and that deadline was approaching quickly. My phone rang. Danny's name on the display. "Where are you?" he asked. "I stopped by the office and Terry said you called in sick." "I'm handling some things." "What kind of things?" I looked at Tyler, who was monitoring police scanners on his phone to make sure Lyra didn't run into any problems. "The kind you don't want to know about until they're finished." "Reid, whatever you're planning—" "I'm not planning anything illegal," I said, which was technically true. Breaking into Derek's apartment was illegal, but I wasn't the one doing it. "That's not what I'm worried about." "What are you worried about?" "I'm worried about you becoming someone you're not. Sienna already took your money and your trust. Don't let her take your integrity too." I ended the call before Danny could say anything else that might change my mind. 30 minutes later, Lyra emerged from Derek's building, walking casually toward the parking garage. She got into her car and drove away without looking back. "Did she get it?" Tyler asked. My phone buzzed with a text from Lyra. "Got everything. Meet at the usual place tonight at 8. She got it. The rest of the day passed in a strange haze of normalcy. I went to the office, finished some routine background checks, had lunch with Terry. He didn't ask about my morning, but I could see the concern in his eyes. Around 4 p.m., a process server found me in the parking lot. "Reid Trenner?" "That's me." He handed me an envelope. "You've been served." I waited until he left before opening it. Divorce papers, exactly as expected. Irreconcilable differences, with a request for temporary spousal support and exclusive use of the marital home. No mention of abuse yet, but I knew that was coming. My phone rang immediately. Sienna. "I'm sorry it had to be done this way," she said when I answered. "But you forced my hand." "Did I?" "You know you did. I gave you a chance to handle this reasonably, but you chose to be difficult." "Difficult, right. It's not too late, Reid. You can still accept my offer. We can make this easy for both of us." I thought about the evidence Lyra had just stolen from Derek's apartment, about the IRS investigation Tyler had triggered, about all the ways Sienna's carefully planned destruction of my life was about to backfire. "You're right," I said. "It's not too late. So you'll agree to the settlement?" "I'll agree to something." That evening, I met Lyra and Tyler at a different location, a quiet restaurant on the outskirts of town where we were unlikely to be seen together. Lyra had brought a laptop and a stack of printed documents. "This is better than I hoped," she said, opening the laptop to show me a video file. Derek recorded everything. Hours of Sienna practicing her victim act, complete with coaching on how to make her story more believable. She played a clip. Sienna sat in front of Derek's bathroom mirror, applying makeup to create fake bruises, while Derek directed her from behind the camera. "More purple around the eye," Derek's voice said. "And remember, you need to flinch when anyone moves too quickly." "I know," Sienna replied. "I've been practicing." "What about the financial evidence?" Tyler opened a folder full of bank statements and credit applications. "Everything's here. The forged loan documents, the credit cards opened in your name, even receipts for the jewelry Derek bought her with your money." I stared at the evidence of their systematic betrayal, feeling a mixture of rage and satisfaction. They'd been so confident in their plan that they'd documented everything. "So what now?" "Now we give them a choice," Lyra said. "They can withdraw the divorce petition and return your money voluntarily, or we can release all of this evidence publicly and let them deal with the consequences." "You think they'll agree to that?" "I think they'll try to call our bluff first. But when they realize we're serious..." Tyler's phone buzzed. He checked the message and grinned. "Derek just got a call from the IRS. They want to schedule an audit for next week." "How do you know that?" "Because he immediately called me, panicking. He wants to know if I know any good tax lawyers." I looked at the evidence spread across the table, at these two people who had helped orchestrate my destruction and were now helping me fight back. It felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, knowing that once I jumped, there would be no going back. "Make the call," I said. Lyra smiled and picked up her phone. "Sienna, it's Lyra. We need to meet, all of us. There's been a development." The meeting was set for the next evening at a neutral location, the conference room of a small business hotel downtown. Sienna arrived first, looking confident in a black dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Derek came 5 minutes later, his usual arrogance slightly dimmed by whatever the IRS had told him. I walked in last, carrying a briefcase that contained copies of everything Lyra had found in Derek's apartment. Tyler was already there, sitting quietly in the corner with a small recording device visible on the table in front of him. "What's this about?" Sienna demanded as soon as I sat down. "It's about giving you one last chance to do the right thing," I said. Derek leaned back in his chair, trying to project confidence he clearly didn't feel. "I don't know what game you think you're playing, but..." "No games," I interrupted. "Just facts." I opened the briefcase and started laying out documents. Bank statements showing the forged loans. Credit card applications with my signature copied from other documents. Photos of Sienna practicing her abuse story. "We know everything," Lyra said. "The fake bruises, the stolen money, even the fact that you've been living together for months while claiming Sienna was afraid to leave me." Sienna's composure finally cracked. You broke into Derek's apartment. Actually, I didn't break into anything, but it's interesting that you know exactly where this evidence came from. Derek stood up abruptly. This is harassment. We're leaving. Sit down, Tyler said quietly. You're going to want to hear this. He pressed play on the recording device. Derek's voice filled the room, bragging about how he was going to destroy my life, how his family's connections would make sure I never worked again. That's illegal recording, Derek said, but he sat back down. Actually, it's not. I was a party to the conversation, which makes it perfectly legal in this state. Tyler smiled. I've got hours of these recordings, Derek, including the ones where you talk about bribing that judge in the Patterson case. Derek went pale. You wouldn't. Try me. I pulled out the final piece of evidence, a document I discovered while reviewing everything Lyra had provided. It was a life insurance policy on me that Sienna had taken out 6 months ago, with herself as the beneficiary. $500,000, I said, sliding it across the table. Taken out right around the time you started planning my destruction. Interesting timing. Sienna stared at the policy, and for the first time since I'd known her, she looked genuinely frightened. I can explain that. I'm sure you can. Just like you can explain the forged documents, the fake abuse photos, and the systematic theft of everything I've worked for. Derek tried one last play. Even if any of this is true, you can't prove it in court. My family has the best lawyers in the state. Maybe, I said, but you know what your family doesn't have? Control over the IRS, the FBI Fraud Division, or the State Bar Association. I pulled out my phone and showed them a number I'd dialed but not yet called. That's the FBI Financial Crimes Unit. They're very interested in bank fraud, especially when it involves forged documents and identity theft. One phone call and they'll freeze all your assets while they investigate. You're bluffing, Sienna said, but her voice shook. Am I? Tyler, why don't you tell them about your conversation with Agent Morrison this afternoon? Tyler nodded. The FBI is already investigating Derek's gambling debts and the suspicious money transfers. They just needed someone to connect the dots. I was happy to help. I looked at both of them, these two people who had systematically planned to destroy everything I cared about. Here's what's going to happen, I said. Sienna, you're going to withdraw the divorce petition and return every penny you've stolen. Derek, you're going to confess to the forgeries and pay back the money with interest. And both of you are going to disappear from my life permanently. And if we don't? Derek asked. Then I make that phone call, and you both spend the next 5 to 10 years in federal prison. Your choice. The room was silent for a long moment. I could see them calculating their options, trying to find a way out that didn't involve complete capitulation. You can't prove the life insurance policy means anything, Sienna said finally. Maybe not by itself, but combined with everything else? The pattern of behavior, the systematic theft, the fake abuse claims, a jury's going to find it very compelling. Derek's phone buzzed. He checked it, and his face went even paler. What is it? Sienna asked. The State Bar Association. They want to meet about the forged documents. I stood up. You have 24 hours to decide. After that, I start making phone calls. I headed for the door, then turned back. Oh, and Derek? You might want to find a new poker game. I hear the FBI is very interested in illegal gambling operations. Outside the hotel, Lyra and Tyler were waiting by my truck. Think they'll take the deal? Lyra asked. They don't have a choice. Derek's looking at disbarment and federal charges. Sienna's looking at prison time. They'll take the deal. What about us? Tyler asked. We're not exactly innocent in all this. You're cooperating witnesses now. That's different. Tyler nodded and walked away, probably to have a difficult conversation with his conscience. Lyra lingered. What happens to me in all this? What do you want to happen? I want to disappear. Start over somewhere else, away from all this. I pulled an envelope from my jacket and handed it to her. There's enough in there for a fresh start. Consider it payment for services rendered. She opened the envelope and stared at the cash inside. Where did this come from? Derek's poker winnings. Turns out he keeps a lot of cash in his apartment safe. I figured he owed you for all the work you did. Lyra smiled, a genuine expression this time. You know, I think I misjudged you. How's that? I thought you were just another mark. Turns out you're better at this game than any of us. She walked away, leaving me alone in the parking lot with the ruins of my old life scattered around me. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Derek's wife. Thank you for exposing him. I'm filing for divorce tomorrow and taking everything. He deserves what's coming. I stared at the message for a moment, then deleted it. Derek's wife. I hadn't even known he was married. Just another lie in a web of deception that had finally collapsed under its own weight. 3 hours later, Sienna called. We accept your terms, she said, her voice flat with defeat. Smart choice. I want you to know that I did love you once. No, you didn't, but that's okay. I'm starting to realize that was probably for the best. I hung up and drove home to the house that would remain mine, to the life I was going to rebuild without the people who had tried to destroy it. The rain had stopped, and for the first time in months, I could see stars through the clouds. 2 weeks later, I was sitting in the lantern room, nursing a whiskey, and reading the newspaper article about Derek's disbarment and pending federal charges. Sienna had transferred all the stolen money back to my accounts and disappeared, probably to start over somewhere else under a different name. Tyler had turned state's evidence and was cooperating with the FBI investigation into Derek's family's business dealings. Turns out the gambling debts were just the tip of the iceberg. Lyra had sent me a postcard from somewhere in Montana, no return address, just a picture of mountains and a note. Thanks for the fresh start. I finished my drink and walked out into the night, leaving behind the wreckage of my marriage and the people who had tried to destroy me. Tomorrow I would start building something new, something better, something that was entirely my own. The last laugh, as it turned out, really was the loudest, and I was the only one still laughing.